All right, very good. Thanks, Kevin. So as Kevin said, with all that's occurred over the past couple months and all that normally falls to HR at year end here, we really just wanted to have a quick conversation around, kind of good practice year end checklist for HR. We'll also have a little bit of fun, as Kevin said, with some holiday movie trivia before Amy pops on for her COVID update, and then we'll leave the bulk of the time for the discussion at the end here. But really appreciate everybody jumping on this morning, and I hope that none of the items on this checklist will come as a surprise, but they should serve just as a reminder of things to be aware of. In most cases, if you have strong benefit and HCMT partners, they should also be putting many of these things on your radar. So, again, hopefully you've got that support structure in place to really keep you, keep these things in front of you and keep you updated. So as always, we do want to have the discussion growing, make sure that our chat box is going and you all have the freedom to type in any additional information into that chat box that you think we should add here. Certainly this isn't going to be an exhaustive list, right? These are just things, again, to keep top of mind, to be aware of. So if there is anything that you think I missed or anything that you want to elaborate on for your purposes, please do share that in the chat. But if we jump right in terms of the areas to be looking at, of course, one of the year-end areas is always benefits, right? Many of you, I'm sure, do renew your benefits for January. Others may be, across the year, mid-year or otherwise. But from a benefits perspective, a couple things to be aware of. One of the biggest things for those of you who are ACA or who are required to comply with ACA, or maybe who just crossed that threshold, you want to confirm who's going to be producing and distributing your year-end ACA forms. So if you've been doing this for a couple of years, you should have that down, hopefully. But if it is a new process for you, if you just crossed that threshold, make sure you're reaching out to your broker, your payroll provider, to confirm who should be and who will be distributing and producing those forms. I know it was a little bit of a hot potato and still continues to be when employers are just getting into that ACA requirement. But that is something that you don't want to leave to the last minute. Reach out to your broker, reach out to your payroll HCM provider, and make sure you confirm who is completing and distributing those forms. Educate employees on rollovers, so flexible spending accounts, dependent care accounts. We were lucky enough last year for the dependent care accounts to have that annual max increase to, I think it was about $10,000. My understanding is that for 2022, that is going back down. There may be a last minute adjustment, but there was some flexibility built in terms of rollovers for both the FSA and DCA accounts. So just make sure you are educating your employees on those if you did decide to implement those areas of flexibility as an employer. Payroll deductions, of course, if you are changing any elections, if you are going into open enrollment, you do want to make sure that those payroll deductions are accounted for and moved over into your payroll system. Consider a confirmation statement to employees. If you're not using an employee navigator, if you're not using a Ben admin system within your HCM provider, I do like the idea of putting together, a sheet that just goes back out to the employees that says, this is the tier that you elected of the benefit. This is how much is coming out of your paycheck. If you do, like I said, any FSAs or retirement accounts, this is your annual election. Real easy to do with an Excel spreadsheet and a merge document there. But just a way to get that back in the hands of the employees to confirm what the elections are that you have on record. Update any salary information with disability and life carriers. So any benefits that you have that are, based off of salary, make sure if you do give out any increases, if you do have any adjustments in salary, that you are updating that on the carrier side so that, that benefit is accounted for appropriately. Consider distributing a total compensation statement. Again, for those of you that do have more of a larger platform, HCM platform, where you have some of that functionality built in, a lot of those are push button that can be put right out to employees. For those of you who don't have that functionality, you should easily be able to get a report out of your payroll provider with the benefits information, contributions from both the employee and employer side to, again, be able to do a mail merge and provide those total compensation statements to your employees. And then year end is always a good time to review P&C policies to ensure proper coverage. Again, with everything that's been going on over the last couple of years, If you have had any significant swings in employee count, makeup, operations, look at workers' comp policies, look at other P&C policies to make sure that they are still appropriate for the, for the makeup of employees that you have and operations. In terms of payroll specific things to be aware of, again, a lot of these no-brainers, but sometimes it just takes a little reminder to make sure that they're on the radar. Confirm the pay periods, check dates, and holidays are accurate for 2022, especially if you are changing any of that. So, I do work with some of our members who are changing payroll providers. They may be going from a bi-weekly to a semi-monthly, or a monthly to a semi-monthly, or bi-weekly or weekly pay. So all of that will, of course, affect your pay periods, your check dates. So if you are making any of those transitions, just make sure that you are on top of that. Make sure that all the dates line up. Any of you who have PTO carryover or don't have PTO carryover going into the new plan year, always a good time to audit, your PTO and making sure that it is paid out or carried over or deleted as necessary according to your policies. Auditing your HRIS and payroll access to remove or adjust any employees who should no longer have access. So that could be somebody within the administrative side of payroll or HRIS who has left the organization and maybe their access is still turned on, or it could be employees who have terminated. In a lot of cases, you can adjust the access that an employee has, where if they have left, now they just have access to either update their demographic information, address, phone number, or they just have access to get their year-end forms. Just make sure that that is all cleaned up, and anybody that should have limited access or no access is cleaned up. I always like the idea of running an employee census report, to look for any missing data. So things like job title, department, supervisor, EEO data, if you do have to collect that type of information. It's the old adage, kind of garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you don't have those fields populated, now's a good time to run that kind of, employee census, capture all of that information, look for the blank cells, and then just re-upload that to make sure you have good, solid, complete data going into the new year that you can report off of. Any tax rate changes as necessary. So again, your HCM payroll provider should be updating these with no issue. They will get those rates, they will update them. If you're doing payroll in-house, again, just something to be aware of. Unemployment comp ratings, I know they're going to start coming out soon, so just make sure that you do forward those off to your payroll provider or make the adjustments in-house if you're doing payroll in-house. And then lastly, under payroll, confirm employee contributions comply with limits for spending accounts, retirement plans, things that have limits on them. Again, so 401k, IRA, the spending accounts, as I mentioned. If you do have one last payroll left in 2021, make sure that those limits are going to end where they need to end, nobody over contributes. If you do need to make any adjustments before the last payroll of the year, now's a good time to just take a good look at that and make sure that everything's up to date. In terms of general compliance, for those of you who do have to comply with AAP, so anybody that's 100 employees or more, or 50 employees with a federal contract, take a look at your calendar year. If you are on a calendar year AAP, make sure that you're putting in place the plans for that. Again, gets back to my point earlier about the payroll data, making sure you don't have any gaps in reportable data in terms of gender, ethnicity, or anything of that nature. Confirm necessary and current labor law posters are posted and distributed. I have a voicemail in my inbox right now for a member that's looking for labor law posters. Again, it's kind of one of those set it and forget it things. You get your all-in-one, you put it on the wall, but take a look at the date in the bottom, probably right-hand corner. Make sure that they are up to date. For our members on the call, we do, of course, have those posters in PDF form up on the Member Tools website. We can also order all-in-one laminated posters for you as well. Confirm employees are current on recurring trainings. So things like CPR training, forklift training, anti-harassment, again, these types of things that are every year, every 2 years, every 3 years. A lot of that can be, again, put into either, an HCM platform or into Excel, into your calendar, but just make sure that you are taking a look to see that you have all of that relevant and accurate and up-to-date data. Review, revise, and distribute your employee handbook as necessary. with everything, again, that's been going on over the past couple of years, we are seeing a lot of our members, do that. We just did that here at MEA. A couple of days ago, we got the, reviewed and updated handbook to sign off on. If you are going to make any changes, always good to do kind of a cover sheet. So if you have, 3 or 4 or 5 policies that you change, highlight what those changes were, send it out with the new handbook, get that signed acknowledgement back. And determine any new eligibility for federal or local laws, but based on employee count. Again, we are seeing some swings in employee count. We're luckily hearing a lot of our members that are continuing to grow. So if you were at that 40 mark and now you're at 45, tipping on 50, look for things like FMLA, look for things like state and local laws that may come into play for sick leave or anything else that may have a employee count threshold to be aware of. And then lastly, before we jump over to our movie trivia, just a few, general things to be aware of. Remind employees to update their demographic information if needed. So if anybody has moved in the past couple months or anybody, has updated the banking account information, certainly a change of address can affect W-2 distribution. If you're not doing all electronic W-2 distribution, if you do have paper W-2s, you want to make sure they're going to the right address. Tax implications for our members that are here in Pennsylvania. We know we have the local taxes. So just making sure that employees are sending in any updates that may need to be accounted for. If you are providing holiday bonuses, find out those amounts, communicate that with your HCM technology provider, and think about things like, is this going to require an additional check run, or is this just going to be put in with our last check run of the year? Are you going to continue to take out all deductions, or are there going to be no deductions taken out of bonus payments? Very often, things like benefit contributions are stopped, but 401k contributions, probably 50-50 split, whether members continue to take them or don't take them out of a bonus payment. And then always good as well to think whether you're going to gross that up. So if you want the $1,000 bonus, if you want the employee to walk away with $1,000, or you want them to, walk away with whatever the net is after taxes. I would say in that one, the majority of members, majority of organizations I speak with are on the, side of not grossing up, but there are some that certainly do. Again, conversation with your payroll HCM provider to make sure all of that's taken care of. And then lastly, just monitoring any document retention policies and making sure you're either shredding, deleting, or filing away any documents that are outside of the retention window. So I-9, Amy will correct me here if I'm wrong, but I think I'm going to be right. First, a year after hire, or no, 3 years after hire, a year after termination, whichever's later. For I-9s, applications, again, if you are still collecting paper applications, make sure you shred them if you do have a retention window for those as well. But just good cleanup reminders in terms of document retention.